Deplorables. It's Chris. It's been a long time since I've seen you. I'm asking you all to watch this today because wherever you live, we live in Minnesota, most of us, it's a disaster right now. We continue to lose elections. We have weak leadership, essentially, in a dysfunctional party. Bless these people, but they're not winning. I'm going to introduce two gentlemen momentarily who have created something called Sidecar. It's tremendous, and they'll be explaining it, but Sidecar is going to become the muscular arm of the conservative movement. The left has Act Blue. We don't have anything. We do now. I'm so excited about this and about winning. I want to introduce you to these two gentlemen. The creators of Sidecar with us here today. Let's start with Michael. Michael and I have been friends for 30 years. He first introduced me when he hired me for a company which was a startup, which he took from zero to $150 million in 18 months. In fact, it's kind of funny, I was able to buy my wife's wedding ring as a result of the hire he gave me. But I've seen this man in action. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. His background prior to NordicTrack, where I met him, was PepsiCo, General Mills, and General Foods. So a strong pedigree as a businessman. Several others, not just the 0 to 150 I talked about, other companies he's built. My point is, he knows how to win. He's done this throughout his career. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Paul Jackson. Paul has an extensive amount of experience in the political realm. Well, first he was a lobbyist for the airline industry in Washington, D.C. Then he worked on national campaign for President Trump in 2020. Prior to that, he worked for Marco Rubio's campaign here in Minnesota, where Marco won. He has a tremendous amount of experience in politics.
Chris, let me interject here really quickly. So yeah, Paul's got a great political background, which we absolutely have to have in Sidecar. Paul's also a very successful businessman. He knows how to make money, he knows how to be successful, he knows how to build operations, he knows to do all the kinds of things we have to do at Sidecar. He is currently running a business that he founded, so he's an entrepreneur as well, and that business is a very successful aviation business, complicated market to be in. So he knows the politics, but he knows the business too.
Great combination of guys we've got here. So Michael, I have a reasonable understanding of Sidecar. I love, in fact, the saying, don't get angry, don't get frustrated, get a plan.
Right.
So the question I think a lot of us have, me included, and the Deplorables is, can we win? How is this going to enable us to win? We've seen so many cycles of failures where we think, oh, we've got this one in the bag. Explain to us, to me, to them, how this is different.
The short answer, the first answer to your question is, yes, we can win. In fact, we should be winning already. It's not so much that we're being beaten in the races, we're beating ourselves in the races. Let me start by just taking a big picture look at what's going on in this political marketplace, and particularly the actors in this marketplace in Minnesota. The Democrats, and everybody knows this, are well organized. They are well funded. They know how to deliver messaging. They know how to write messaging. They, in short, have their act together. And again, they have the money to make it go. We, on the other hand, are on the converse. We are not organized. We do not have money. We don't have, and I don't want to take a shot at people who are trying hard, but we don't have the leadership that is able to get us organized to get the things done that we need to get done. So we have some pretty big weaknesses in those areas, but we have two huge strengths. First, we already have the numbers to win. And again, and people are going, wait, then why didn't we win? Well, I'll explain that in a little bit when we start to talk about market segments. But we already have the numbers. And the second thing is, and this is huge, as a marketer in particular, I love this, we have the issues. In poll after poll after poll, if you go issue by issue, it is the conservative position that is favored by the majority of Minnesotans and Americans for that matter. And it's a big majority.
I've seen this recently with my friends. I mean, I have friends, we should celebrate our similarities. There are a lot of those. And I think the messaging that we've had, at least in my novice opinion, hasn't been good. So this is
And we're
great.
going to talk about that.
Good.
Paul, Minnesota is a quirky place when it comes to how we run our elections, right? You've explained all of this to me. And you should explain it to them too, but in particular, why is Minnesota different? Why does it make doing politics here easier in some ways, and why does it make it much harder in other ways?
The easiest way to say that is campaign finance laws. And the word campaign is in campaign finance laws for a reason. Minnesota restricts the amount of money in campaigns greatly. What that means is that in order to make an impact in a race in Minnesota, outside money coming in can make a big difference. You mentioned earlier that the Democrats do things right. They do this right. They come in with outside money. They have PACs. They have organizations that get money to candidates and, in fact, campaigns. They have the teachers' unions. They have the state workers' unions. They have liberal Democrat millionaires that donate. And they have the vehicles built to get that to the campaigns legally and affect races. Where does that leave the Republicans? Where that leaves the Republicans is we used to rely on big donors. We had a lot of great big donors in the state of Minnesota, and the lack of success in the last few cycles has scared them away.
I'm amazed they stuck in as long as they did.
Yeah, and I am too, but what that does is it pushes the responsibility to the smaller donors, and the smaller donors can make a difference. But the only way a small donor can make a difference is if they're aggregated, because as I'll talk about a little bit later on, I think we want to get into this about what do we do with sidecar in the operational side of it. It's when the money comes in that's as important as how much.
Chris, let me boil that down a little bit in terms of what do we actually have to do to win. Let me make this a little practical. Yeah. Paul made the point about the transition of the big donors dropping out, right? And that's obviously a critical force. Yeah, right. Well, they're gone. They may come back someday, but they're gone. There's nobody in another state that's going to help us. There's nobody federally that's going to help us. There is no cavalry coming, all right? If we want to build the capabilities that are required to win in Minnesota, and think of this like a business, that's how I'm thinking about it. I'm starting with nothing. What kind of structures do I have to build, right? If we want to build the capabilities that are necessary to win, we have to do it. Yeah. Well, the big donors are gone. Who's we? We is the little guy. It's the average Joe and Jane on the street, and the average Joe and Jane conservative on the street, right? And we have to pull together. We have to aggregate ourselves. That's the term I use. We have to pull together, and we have to build the indefatigable, the unbeatable force that brings the focus of the entire conservative body in Minnesota into action.
That's why I like this. You know, we have a lot of people. We've had parties here. We've had social. We have 3 people that got married as Deplorables.
I think that's great.
We haven't had, you know, a true, I mean, we have a fun thing, but to be led by people who understand business and who aren't in this just to make money. They're in this to win. And I love this. That's why we brought you here. So I want to keep going. I hope this is working.
Well, yeah, let me just kind of pick up on, you know, you have this great environment you've built. I'll bet you've heard this 1,000 times at various get-togethers, right? What can I do?
Yeah, no, I totally hear that. And these people want to get involved, but you know, they thought they were by themselves, right? And then they found, you talk about aggregation. I mean, we just came together with 15 people, grew to 14,000 people. Yeah. And we've had, you know, events, people get married. I mean, we've had a pretty good run. But you know what? Maybe it's time now to coalesce that and to focus it. I mean, you talk about boots on the ground. These people want to do things. They want to help.
Yeah. Well, and if we're aggregated together, they can. Yeah. That's the key thing. Each of us individually can do almost nothing. And I will tell you, forget almost. Yeah. Each of us alone can do nothing. But if we aggregate together, there's nothing we can't do.
I like that.
Did I tell you the toll road story?
No.
Well, let me tell you. This is all under the category of the power of aggregation. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mid to late 90s, a bunch of wonderful people got together. MnDOT, the state government, the Met Council got together. They decided they wanted to build toll roads in Minnesota. Oh. But it's worse than that. They wanted to build one toll road in Minnesota, and then they wanted to convert 5 other roads into toll roads.
I remember.
Okay. So the road that they were going to build was 212, which runs to the south and the west of the Twin Cities. And I looked at the plan and hated it, read about it in the paper, did what everybody does. I read about it in the paper, looked at the plan, thought it sounded like a really, really bad idea, went down to City Hall and did some research. Spent a day at City Hall, just alone, just one guy. Remember, what could one guy do? Well, he could research. So I went down and researched. What I thought was a bad idea was actually a much worse idea. I said, okay, I've got to take the next step. I got to start meeting with the council members and share my thoughts. So there were 5 people in the city council. I met with all 5 of them individually, and I got the same answer from each. We have 5 votes in favor of this, because the city council, for whatever reason, had to approve this. The city councils that would be affected on the throughway. Yeah. So they had to approve it, or they could kill it. And I was told by all 5 of them, we have the 5 votes. We don't care what you say. Go home, sit down, shut up. Okay, they were polite about it, but that was essentially the message. Right. Okay, we have 5 votes, just go away. Right. So I went home, sat down on my couch, called some people, and that night we had a meeting of about 10 people in my living room that all hated the idea of building toll roads anywhere in Minnesota. Certainly not one in this that would suck up everybody from the Southwest would have been paying tolls. And so these 10 people developed a plan, which was basically aggregation. We're going to get the word out to more people. We're going to get more people together, and we're going to put pressure on the government to do
the squeaky wheel got the grease, as I know.
Well, that's right. That's so true. Yeah. So anyway, fast forward a couple of weeks, we got some stuff in the paper, some information in the paper. We did some flyers and some mailers, and we held an organizational meeting, and 200 people showed up. So another level of aggregation, right? So this, to put in perspective, Eden Prairie at the time has something like 36,000 residents. So not 200 out of 36,000. That's not so terrible. Right. And these guys were fired up. We passed the hat. We raised a little bit of money so we could do more mailings and more get the word out type stuff. And then the big push was the vote's going to happen on such and such date. Come, let them know how you feel. Well, we didn't know if 200 people were going to show up or 3 people. We didn't know what was going to show up. What we do know is all kinds of people were starting to write letters to the editor. We didn't know who they were, but they were on our side. So there was this thing building, this aggregation was happening outside of whatever structure we thought we were controlling, right? And it was beautiful. Well, we get to the day of the vote, and I couldn't find a spot to park. And I was the lead speaker in the show, and I couldn't find a spot to park, so I ended up parking a long ways away. By the time I got there, the place was packed. I asked a cop. I couldn't believe there were even police there, but I asked the cop, how many people? Right. 2,000 people. Oh my. Okay, 2,000 people came to this thing. That's aggregation. Yes. Okay, the punchline is the vote, instead of being 5-0, was 4-1 against. Yeah. All because we aggregated. So what can we do alone? You can do research, you can go in and you can complain and you can get ignored. What can we do with 2,000 of our closest friends? Anything. Anything we want to accomplish, we can accomplish if we aggregate.
They want us to think that we are really powerless. Yeah. They pound this, but the reality is they're scared to death of people that amass.
Well, and you guys have done such a cool thing with the Deplorables where you guys have already come together and you have dialogue going on and you can speak honestly to each other. It's really powerful. But that's different than now we got to take that force and we got to direct it.
Yeah, no, we need that, and that's why we're here. That's why I asked you to do this. So,
isn't that a cool story?
No,
though?
I love it. And you know what? It gives me hope because some days you just feel beat down. I mean, you see some of the things. You see the defund the police, everything that's going on. You see criminals not being prosecuted or not being fought. You see fewer police, and the morale of the police isn't great. You know, we need that.
Right.
What is
people on our side?
What is the adage? Without law and order, man has no freedom. And it's depressing. So to hear something like that made a difference, that's what we want.
And all it is, in practical terms, we have to raise money. You can't do anything without raising some money. And we're going to ask for money later, let's be honest. Yeah, I mean... But you also need, this is why we call it aggregation instead of fundraising, because you also need, when you have the big meeting,
you need those people to show up.
And this, let me put it in perspective, by the way. It was a toll road. It wasn't transgender. It wasn't this wacky stuff that's going on. No, it was just a toll road. 36,000 people, probably half of them are kids. That leaves you, 18,000 adults. There's a lot of kids, so they can't all come. Someone's got to stay home and keep an eye on the kids. So maybe 9,000 could have come. And we had 2,000 who did come. That's the power of aggregation, and that's half of what we're up to. Half of it's fundraising, half of it's aggregation. If you guys are asked the question, what can I do? There's a lot we can do together.
You said we can win. You said confidently we can win. Take us through how you break this down. What specifics? As a marketer, as what you know, how does that play, and how can that be explained better? You certainly can explain it better than I can.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be able to explain it in unbelievably straightforward terms. None of this is complicated. That's the first thing that everybody should understand is we're not splitting any atoms with any of this. Yeah. Okay, so you asked me like 3 or 4 questions, and then I'll kind of take them in order, I guess, if I can. And I'm going to start getting into the actual steps of what we're going to do. Okay, what do we actually operationally do? And how a marketer looks at this, like what should we do, is we start by looking at market segments. We don't look at Minnesota. We don't even look at race by race. We look at the big segments of what are the types of voters out there. Now, in marketing, we call them consumers, but it's the same thing. We're trying to get somebody's behavior in line with what we want it to be. And in fact, maybe I should just take a second on that. Marketers, there's this very big misconception about what marketers do. Marketers don't convince people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise want to do or that they don't want to do. It's not so much about analysis. What marketers do is they get people to change their attitudes about something so that they can do something that they already want to do. Okay, remember I talked about...
So they're the Jedi mind trick.
It's a little bit of Jedi... Well, do you know what it is? We're going to talk about this in just a second. It's good messaging. Yeah. How do I convince somebody that the conservative principles that they really buy into,
right,
that's their attitude, can translate into the behavior of voting for a Republican?
Words are so important.
Words are the whole thing. And so it's not a Jedi...
No,
I wish it was a Jedi mind trick.
That was pejorative.
But the point of it is, that's what marketing is. Okay, so how does a marketer look at the world? They look at it in terms of segments. Right. So the first segment, the closest in segment, because that's the easiest one to get to, the one that's already ours, really, is registered Republicans. Uh-huh. In the last election, 250,000 Republicans did not vote.
In Minnesota?
In Minnesota.
Registered Republicans.
Now let me put this in perspective. Had they voted, we would have won the governor's race, we would have won the Secretary of State, we would have won the Attorney General, we would have certainly won the House, and almost certainly, I mean, you have to look at the geography a little bit, but almost certainly would have won the Senate. Really? That's if our guys had just shown up. Okay, I don't have to change attitudes and try to get that attitude to turn into behavior. These guys are already on our side.
You may not know.
But no, let me do this. Let me finish this last thought though, because that segment gives us an indicated action. Right. It tells us what to do. Well, what it tells us is 250,000 of our fellow Republicans need their hand held a little bit to get their ballot into the box. Right. And it's legal to do this in Minnesota. It's called a lot of things, but ballot chasing is probably the best term. I think Republicans generally find it distasteful. I find it distasteful.
We don't lose if
That's
we don't
right,
do it.
because it's the law of the land. So the first segment is the close in. It's our own fellow Republicans, and the first order of business is getting those guys' ballots chased. That's enough to turn us into a red state by a little bit, but. Okay,
no, I'm excited. I see where the deplorables can be of help too. In addition, I mean, these are the people who will do that. A lot of them.
People on the ground doing work. This is not a wish. This is not a Jedi mind trick. We can't make this happen by magic. It does require people. That's why we're back to the aggregation thing again. Okay. Second segment is unregistered conservatives. We have no idea how many are out there because they're not registered. But
well, that's what we saw in 2016. We saw them. Right. They had never voted. A lot of these people.
Trump showed us that there's a lot of them. Right. Yeah. So what do we have to do? Well, it's the same kind of thing. It's a different indicated action, but it's an indicated action. We have to get out and get these guys registered. Right. We have to find them, which, by the way, we know how to do. It's a marketing challenge. It's a database marketing challenge. We know how to do that. That's not. Right. You know, if any of you are on the internet, we can find you. You know, that kind of thing. So yeah, it is frightening, but from a marketer's perspective, it's the best time to be alive. So we can find them, but then again, we have to go get them. We need people to go get them, right? And we need resources to go get them because it's going to take cash too. Okay, two different segments, two different indicated actions. Now let's come down to the independents. You were talking about friends of yours who don't vote the way you do all the time, or maybe rarely vote the way you do. So let's talk about independents, and I'm going to throw in even disaffected Democrats.
Yeah,
okay.
a lot of those.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the Democratic Party is, let's face it, it's kind of lost its mind. Yeah. So what do we do to get those guys? And we hinted at it a little bit earlier. First of all, the independent block alone is about a little over 500,000 votes. Wow. So remember, 250 from Republicans gets us over the top. What do we do what happens when we turn those other 500,000 into Republicans? By changing the attitudes and then changing the behavior. Okay, we have a red state at that point. Okay, so how do we do it? Well, we do it with maybe the thing that we are the worst at right now, which is messaging. I'm talking about all Republicans. I'm not talking about Minnesota Republicans. As a marketer, I've been looking at this for decades going, what are they saying? Why are they saying that? Not republicanism, conservatism as a philosophy is the best product I've ever seen. Now, you were kind enough in the introduction to share that I brought some businesses to some pretty big, successful numbers. Yes. I've never had a product like conservatism. People love it. We talked about the polls. People want it. All we have to do is explain what it is accurately and what's in it for people, features and benefits in the marketing world. And marketers do it every day. And we have no marketers. We have no marketing mindset in the Republican Party or in any of the campaigns. Paul was talking earlier about how you have to be able to get support into campaigns. Well, a big thing that they need is, how do I talk about conservatism?
Consistency in message.
Right, and well, quality of message first of all.
Quality first.
Are we communicating? Because if we communicate conservatism accurately, we win. It's a great product. All we have to do is talk about it properly. That is not rocket science. Marketers have been doing it forever. I could go on for hours about how you do that, and and nobody would listen. We'd have people would be hanging.
It's fascinating.
Anyway, so 3 different segments, 3 different approaches to what we're doing. Messaging, and now again, I want to bring up a point that Paul brought up earlier. In practical terms, you can't go tell a candidate what to say. But if we have PACs set up outside of the party, outside of the candidates, we can talk about conservatism the way it needs to be talked about. And now we're in an exercise of brand building. Because right now the conservative brand, the Republican brand, we can't brand the Republicans because we're not part of the Republicans.
Right.
But we can brand conservatism based on what it is and what it delivers. And we can rebrand it such that people realize those are my priorities. Just like the polls say, we change the attitude because we get them to say, those are my priorities. All we have to do is talk about it properly. When we talk about a particular issue, we have to explain the conservative position, explain what's in it for everybody, which conservatives never do. They always stop. They always assume less government is better.
Why?
Why?
Explain that.
What's in it for anybody? What's the value there? Well, there's great value there, so let's explain it. Less regulation is good. Okay, what kind of regulation? We all like clean water. Right. So what kind of regulation? And why is less better? Explain what the burden is on companies. We never do. And there's example after example after example. So three different segments. We go after them with 3 different sets of tactics. A lot of boots in the ground. A lot of chances to say, what can I do? A lot of answers to what can I do to help, right? But also a chance to do some sophisticated rebranding so that the principles that people already believe in, that they already buy into, get associated with the candidates that actually support them. And that's that whole attitudinal behavioral marketing thing that I was talking about earlier. So I think I addressed all of your questions. You had a bunch of them, prove to me that we can win, basically. How do marketers think about this? We think of it about in terms of segments. Practically, what are the things we have to do? So from a marketing perspective, those are 3 big ones. There are other political things that I'm sure Paul will talk about. Did I miss anything?
No, I think I had 3 of them, and okay. I think you hit all of them. I like this. That was great. It makes a lot of sense how marketing works. But what I think I want to know, and I know what they want to know, is you're the business marketing guy. Paul, as a political guy, how does that mesh? What Michael just said about marketing and how that coalesces. Is that the word? But please.
Coalesce is a big word. you've got to break it down into a couple different operational phases or operational steps that we can take along the way. Next is finding quality candidates. We need to kind of have a headhunter mentality. We need to find the right person for the right race at the right time. And if it fits, support them. It's important to come in early and support that person. And understanding that affecting races doesn't happen in October before the election. It starts when the candidates are developing. It starts all the way along.
Well, Jensen started getting hammered in, what, March?
Coming out of the convention, the Democrats came after Scott personally, branded him, and to be honest, they punched him in the nose and he never was able to get up.
We certainly didn't have the apparatus in place where we could defend against that.
But the reality is that there was that lull, and we need to take that out and we need to smooth that out.
What I'm continuously stunned by is, I've had a chance now over the last couple of years to meet a lot of candidates. Great people. I mean, I really admire these guys for stepping up. They have no help. I mean, they don't know how to put together a website. They don't know how to find volunteers. They don't even know who to call for fundraising. They don't know how to even begin crafting a message. It is amazing to me how these guys, I think you use the term thrown to the wolves. We throw these guys, the Republican Party throws these guys to the wolves, and they give them nothing. They're out there naked, and there's like, hey, go win. You have the endorsement. That's what you're going to get from us.
I can tell you this, working in politics right now, there isn't enough meaningful polling of conservative voters, independent voters that is coming back and being fed back to campaigns, being fed back to the party. And you're continuously testing the market, seeing where the market is, and then seeing what messaging needs to come out.
When you're doing research, and we're going to have to do research, messaging research, you're not out to find out, do I have to be a rhino to get these guys?
Right.
Do I have to sell out? What you're really trying to find out is what I'm saying, what they're hearing.
That's good. I have to ask something. How do we battle? We clearly have bias. And
Can I go back to the toll road story for a second? Okay. What we demonstrated by bringing 2,000 of our closest friends to that meeting was that, numbers matter and big numbers really matter.
Right.
I mean, 2,000 people showing up was absurd. I mean, it's just so over the top, it's just ridiculous, right? But let's say you're hypothetically you're the first guy in, just like I was the first guy in on the toll road thing, right? I'm the first guy in. And I'm like, this news stuff is ridiculous. It's biased. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on. And the first guy in goes and talks to the news director from whatever outlet and says, why are you doing this? You need to not do this. You're pissing off half of your audience. What are you doing?
Right.
Not to mention it's unethical.
Right.
And he's going to say the same thing the city council members was, which is get out.
Yeah.
But if we're aggregated, right, we now say, look, program director, right? You're in charge of making sure there's enough advertising revenue. That's what the owner likes, right? Our next stop is we're going to go talk to all of your advertisers, most of whom are local.
Right.
Now, if we aggregate enough people in the state of Minnesota, we can have all of those people do exactly what the toll road people did, which is you guys send letters to the editors, send letters to the papers, send letters to the individual advertisers, saying until they change their policy at the news agency, as long as you're advertising, we're not supporting you.
So
we will never buy a truck from you again.
Act like a Democrat. It's difficult.
Act like somebody who wants to win.
Okay, I think we have a pretty good understanding, at least the basis, the beginning of an understanding for how Sidecar is going to work. I want to give some final thoughts to Michael.
Sure. Of the biggest thing, we can win in Minnesota. We should win in Minnesota. All we have to do is get organized and aggregated. And if we do that, we can't lose, but we have to be honest. The cavalry's not coming. If we don't do it ourselves, it won't get done.
Paul?
I want everyone out there to understand the importance that they play. I ran a PAC in the last cycle. I've been around this. I've been the political guy that's been there on the Saturday in June, and I've tried to move the needle, and I keep putting on the helmet and running into the wall. There's a reason I'm drawn to this. There's a reason I'm working on this and putting my time and treasure into this, because I think this is a really, really good plan.
I do as well.
I'm looking at this group, and I was very excited when we talked to you about them. I think this is a great lead-off group, a good group that can get this. We can go on and build this thing, but this is a great place to start.
Well, you guys, I can't thank you enough. I mean that. Michael, you have one more thing?
I do want to say, even though I already did my one more thing, but yeah, I want to talk about the Deplorables a little bit. So I brought a lot of new products to market. There's that first critical group of people, and they go by a couple of names. In the marketing world, they go by the name early adopter. In the organizational world, they'll go by the name thought leader. They're the same thing. They're the early people who actually start the ball rolling, right? That's the Deplorables. That's the basket of proud Deplorables. Let's use the full name, right?
Right.
It's fun to call them the Deplorables because it's a cool name, but every once in a while you got to do the full honor thing, right?
We're very proud.
So the basket of proud Deplorables, these are the active, these are the aware conservatives. They know what's going on. They know what the score is. And I just put it this way. Where they lead, we're at this group, and I know you're part of the group, right? Where you guys lead, the rest of conservatives will follow. And that's how critical the Deplorables are. You want to talk about what can I do? Just by signing up, you're leading.
Yeah. Thank you both. That was great. Deplorables, thank you for listening. A lot of deep stuff, but you know what is important stuff. I believe strongly in this. I'm going to be a part of it. I hope you are too. We're going to have some more events, have some fun, but you know, it's now or never. And I know that sounds a little dark, but I don't want to live like this anymore. In our state, we've got to do better. I think this is the way we can do better, and we can get some of our friends who are not quite in the middle or what do you call them, disaffected Democrats. These people are our friends. We have a lot in common with them. But anyways, there is a link that's going to be below that will allow you to sign up. Please do so. And again, thank you. Bless Deplorables.